Friend, have you ever found yourself on the other side of pornography asking yourself this question? How did I get here again? Maybe you've promised yourself that that was the last time. Maybe you've prayed. Maybe you've deleted the apps. Maybe you've installed Covenant Eyes. Maybe you genuinely meant it when you said never again. And yet somehow here you are. If that's you, I want you to know something today, friend. Listen, you're not crazy. You're not hopeless. You're not alone. In fact, today, I want to help you understand what's happening inside your brain, inside that dome. Not because understanding the brain is the ultimate answer. Jesus, in fact, is the answer. We know this. We're Christians. We believe the Bible. We believe in the Holy Spirit. Jesus is the answer, but there's something going on in the brain that we need to talk about. And understanding what's happening in the brain can give you hope and help explain why this battle seems to be so difficult at times. And so if you'll stay with me today until the end, I'm going to show you what practical steps you can take to begin building a pathway towards freedom. Now, quick reminder for you guys, Crush the Shame Challenge starts tomorrow. It is not too late. You have 24 hours to jump in, okay? I want you to come with me. This is going to be a live 3-day event. You guys know the deal. Crush the Shame Challenge. We are going to understand shame, how it keeps us trapped in the cycle of addiction, and how I can help you to step out of hiding. This is the first step you have to take from the 4C framework, crushing the shame. So if you don't crush the shame, you will not get free. I'm telling you, friend, you need that shame identity shift. So please go to the website, Crush the Shame Challenge. Join it, sexaddictedchristian.com. You can click the link below. If you're listening to this at a later time, I'm sure there's one coming up soon. So I'm doing these each month. So join the next one if you have not yet done that. I want to see you there, friend. It is going to be a revolutionary time for you. So please make sure you join it. Okay. So let's talk about the brain. The brain is always learning. I want to keep this simple because I'm not a neuroscientist, okay? I'm just a recovery coach and a biblical counselor. But there are a few things about the brain that are incredibly helpful if you understand them. Your brain is always learning. That's how God designed it. He designed it this way, okay? So your brain is trying to keep you alive, right? Your brain wants to be as efficient as possible. It wants to do things in the smartest way that it can. Think about just driving. The first time that you drove a car, if you could think back to that, for me it was, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. But the first time you drove a car, you had to think about everything, right? You had to think about where your hands are, where the mirrors are, where the turn signals are, the brakes. Everything required effort. Maybe you could think about it in terms of the last time you rented a car, because you don't know where everything is, but you had to think about every little detail, right? But today, maybe you're driving right now, listening to the podcast on Apple or Spotify. Leave me a 5-star review if you haven't done that already. Would love your feedback there. But think about this. You're driving across town, and sometimes you barely remember the trip. Have you ever had that? I've driven home at times, getting off the interstate at the exit, and the last thing I remembered in regard to driving was getting on the interstate. And I've been driving for 20 minutes. I don't even remember driving home. Why is that the case? Because your brain learns something. That is a crazy thought that you could do something without thinking about it. And the reality is, friend, today is that the same thing happens with your addiction. You weren't born addicted. Your brain learned, and addiction became a byproduct of that learning. And unfortunately for many of us, what it learned was that pornography was the solution to our problems, right? One of the things that fascinates me, right, is that with people in AI and how quickly it can learn. So I don't know if you're like me. I recently, in the last year or so, got more acquainted with ChatGPT. And the more that I interact with chat, the more it learns how I think. Right? It learns what questions I ask. It learns what topics I care about. It learns the language I tend to use. It learns my preferences. And eventually, what ChatGPT does is it starts serving me things before I even ask for them, right? Google does this. Instagram does this, TikTok does this. The algorithm in our technology learns us, and it starts serving up to us more and more things that are connected or preferential in the way that we behave, the way that we want, our desires, our needs, the way that acts. I mean, this is crazy to think about with the AI porn stuff. That's a whole nother topic we're going to have to explore at some other time. But listen to me, friend, today. Your brain is working in a very similar way. Not exactly, but very similarly, right? Your brain is paying attention. Your brain is constantly learning your patterns. It's constantly asking, what should I do when this happens? This being whatever, right? X happens. When X happens, what should I do? That's the question your brain is asking. And every time, friend, listen to me, this is important. Every time you choose pornography, every time you choose fantasy, every time you choose to escape, your brain is taking notes. Scary, I know, right? Your brain is learning from your preferences. So eventually it begins anticipating the answer before you've consciously even thought about it. This is crazy to me, right? So let me just give you an example from my own life, right? I talked about a little bit about this last week. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, I would love for you to go do that. I'm in last week's episode, we're talking about confronting the cause. It's the 3rd C in the 4C framework. Guys, if you haven't downloaded that, by the way, the 4 Pillars of a Porn-Free Life, go under the coaching tab. Just go to the website, sexaddictedchristian.com, under the coaching tab, or right there on the landing page, you can download the 4 pillars. This is a free self-study guide. It'll walk you through the 4 pillars, the entire 4C framework. But anyway, back to our conversation. Last week, we talked about some of those underlying causes that lead us towards our addiction. If we don't confront the real cause of our addiction, then we'll stay addicted. Porn's not really the problem. That's the name of last week's episode. Go back and listen. Give me some feedback on that. But an example from my own life in terms of this brain connection, right, is as a young teenager, I shared this story. That's what I'm talking about. Last week, I shared this story more in depth. I would call myself a late bloomer. I looked around the locker room as a baseball player in middle school, junior high. We called it junior high then. I looked around the locker room and I compared myself to all these other guys. And when I did, I compared myself based on I mean, frankly, just on their bodies, right? Like I was barely in puberty at that point. And my muscles and my reproductive organs, all that stuff just wasn't, I was still a kid. I was still a young kid in comparison to what looked like men. I felt behind. I felt different. I felt less than. And somewhere during those years, I began believing a lie. I believed I'm not enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not man enough. I'm not valuable enough. And this is where pornography didn't enter the picture, because the first time I saw porn was at 11. But all of a sudden, pornography or sexual interest started deeply connecting to my desire for approval, right? So at the time, I thought this pornography or sexual addictive behavior, these habits, were solving my problem of feeling less than. But what I didn't realize as a young man, and really didn't realize until maybe in the recent years of recovery, that I was teaching my brain something in those decisions. So every time I felt insecure, every time I felt inadequate, every time I felt like I wasn't enough, I taught my brain that porn was the answer, that porn was the solution. Porn is where relief is found. Porn is where approval is found. And my brain listened every time I told it that. So let me give you an illustration. This has been really helpful in some of my coaching conversations. Some of my clients have found this illustration really helpful. So I want to give it to you. Imagine your life as a business, like your life, meaning like your body, life, decisions, everything kind of going on in life. Imagine it as a business. I got a lot of business owners, high-performing people that I coach, so this connects with them, and hopefully it connects with you as well. Think of yourself, if you could kind of like take Jimmy or yourself out of the equation, kind of like existentially out, and then identify that person as the owner. And then your brain, we're going to communicate the brain as the CEO, and then the rest of your body as the employees of this business. Okay, so think of your life as a business. And one day, what happens is the employees or the body comes to the CEO, the brain, and it says, hey, we're anxious, or we're lonely, or we're stressed, or we're afraid. And the CEO, your brain, turns to you, Jimmy, or you, and says, hey, the employees are saying things are off, and I'm not really sure how to solve this. You're the owner, so what would you like us to do? Years ago, maybe in that moment, your answer was pornography. Maybe it was masturbation. Maybe it was fantasy, sexual acting out. So you tell your brain, the CEO, hey, employees are not happy, body's not happy, just go to the addiction. CEO goes, okay, got it. The next day, the employees show up again, same problem. CEO asks again, comes to you and says, hey, what do we do? Body's not happy. What do we do? You give the same answer. Hey, go look at porn, go masturbate, whatever that sexual promiscuity is, right? And this happens again and again and again. Then eventually something fascinating happens in the body. The CEO stops asking. Why? Because you, the owner of this business, have already answered this question 100 times over. So the CEO then says, I already know what the owner wants. And this, my friend, is biological addiction. Your brain isn't trying to destroy you. Your brain is trying to efficiently solve a problem. The problem is that you taught your brain the wrong solution. So your brain, my brain, your brain isn't trying to destroy you. It's just trying to solve the problem. And I just taught it the wrong solution. This becomes something like the highway to hell, right? Every time you repeat a behavior, you're paving a road. At first, it's just a path. Then that path becomes a trail. Then the trail becomes a road, then a highway, and eventually it becomes a massive interstate. We've got I-75 out here in Tampa that runs all the way from the south, all the way north up to, I don't know, Missouri, or I don't know where it ends, but it is a massive highway through Atlanta, right? Georgia, Tennessee, all the way up there. 6 lanes, cruise control, autopilot, right? 20 years ago, I would have maybe used the cruise control as an illustration. We're all pretty used to that now. But today, like, think about it. We have Teslas. Think about this highway. We have Teslas that practically drive themselves. And honestly, this idea is what addiction starts to actually feel like, right? As we talked about earlier, you don't even remember making the decision. You don't even remember the first exit or the first turn. You look up and you're halfway through the process wondering, how did I get here? Have you ever had that, friend? Have you ever, you're literally clicking through pornography on your computer and you're like, dude, I don't even remember getting here. The answer is that your brain has traveled this route so many times that it has become the default destination. Like we talked about, you've driven home from work, you've parked in your driveway, only to realize you barely remember the drive. That's your brain. That is your brain. You've made the trip so many times that your brain handles it automatically, and addiction works in the same way. The route's familiar, the road is smooth, the path is established. Your brain isn't inventing something new. It's simply taking you down the road that you've taught it to travel. And that road, my friend, we might call the highway to hell. Now, this is where, honestly, you can get really discouraged, friend. And I don't want you to get there. You know pornography is wrong. You hate what it's doing to your life. You genuinely want freedom. So why doesn't that fix the problem? This desire or knowledge doesn't fix the problem, because addiction isn't just a knowledge problem. It's a training problem. It's a conditioning problem. It's a pathway problem. The old highway is still there. So you can want freedom and still have an addicted brain. That's why willpower by itself is rarely just not enough. Think about it this way. God tells us in the scriptures in Galatians, we read, do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that he will also reap, right? So we talked about this in the consequences video a couple weeks back. Every click is planting a seed. Every fantasy is planting a seed. Every relapse, planting another seed. Every act of obedience even, right? Plants a seed. Every phone call to a friend that you make whenever you're tempted, that plants a seed. Every decision that you make is teaching the brain something. Every decision is paving a road, right? Eventually we reap what we've repeatedly sown. And that's the encouraging side of this truth, right? If you've spent years sowing addiction, you can begin sowing freedom. And over time, you'll begin reaping freedom as well. Romans 12 says this: don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I love this verse because for thousands of years, Christians have talked about renewing their mind. And today, neuroscientists talk about this thing called neuroplasticity. This is a beautiful truth, friends. Your brain is moldable. Your brain doesn't, it's not, we just had concrete poured for a back porch at our house. That concrete was brought in a truck that went through a hose, and it was liquid form. And within 24 hours, that liquid turned into a hard surface. And there is no way for me to get that concrete back to a moldable liquid format. It is forever concrete now. It's cement. And if I want to do anything different about that, I've got to go out there with a jackhammer and bust it up. But I'm not getting it back to a form of liquid. Your brain is not like that. Your brain didn't go from where it was through your training of teaching it addiction, and then it hardened into addiction. Your brain is actually neuroplasticity. It's not what it is. That's what it can do, right? So it's able to be shaped. You can retrain it. So the Bible talks about renewing your mind. Scientists talk about neuroplasticity. Somewhere in all of that, we are saying the same thing. God designed your brain with the ability for it to change. Your brain learned addiction, which means your brain can learn freedom. That's hope today, friend. That's incredibly hopeful. So I want you to hear this, friend. There's a lot to the addiction recovery, but one of those things that I have found to be super powerful is understanding that there is a body connected to the soul. We are embodied souls. We are spirit men living in a temporary body that has learned and adapts based on our choices and the way we live our lives. So we can change. We can change. Now, listen to me though. This is where recovery can get hard, right? Imagine you've spent the last 10 years driving on a 6-lane interstate, and then one day you decide, I'm done going that direction. So you literally pull off the road over into the hazard lane, let's just say. And you're like, I'm done. I'm stopping right now. I'm pulling off the road. And you jump over the median. We're just like on the side of the interstate somewhere in no man's land on our way to some big city on a 6-lane highway. We pull off, we get out of the car, and we jump over the barrier, and we literally walk into the woods. There's no trail. There's no road. There's no signs. It's just brush, trees, difficulty. That, friend, is recovery. Sound inviting? Probably not, but you have to understand this. You are choosing in recovery to build something that doesn't yet exist, which is why this is why recovery feels sometimes harder than the addiction. The addiction is easy. That old road is easy. The new road requires effort. The old road is familiar. The new road requires trust. The old road feels natural. The new road feels awkward. That is normal, friend. It's not failure. That's growth. So this is where a lot of people can get discouraged. And I want you to think about that. If you're new to this recovery journey, at least think of this in the first 30 days. Like these first 30 days to 90 days even, right? This is why the Alcoholics Anonymous group, the 12-steppers, they whenever someone comes in and they're there to recover from alcoholism, they talk about doing 90 meetings in 90 days because the 12-steppers have realized that this takes a profound amount of effort. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of repetition early on, mainly in many ways because of what we're talking about. There are other factors in terms of these rituals and liturgies, and there's a lot of stuff wrapped up in this, but your body and brain are in a rut. And you can get really discouraged in those first 30 days because you decide you're done. You finally get serious, you confess, you install the internet blockers, you join a group and you start fighting, and then suddenly recovery feels harder than the addiction. And you begin to wonder, why does this feel so difficult? Friend, this is normal. Listen to me. This is normal. Don't quit yet, okay? You're trying to stop driving on a 6-lane interstate and you're starting to cut a trail through a forest. This is not easy. The old road is easy. You've spent years building it. That's why the old pathway is familiar. It's efficient. The old pathway has momentum. The new pathway doesn't have any of that yet. Yet. Key word, yet, friend. The first few weeks of recovery are often the hardest because your brain is still expecting you to take the old route. So your cravings just are normal. Resistance is normal. Frustration is normal. Temptation is normal. Don't interpret difficulty as failure, friend. One difficulty is evidence that you're finally moving in a different direction. So listen to me, friend. Keep cutting the trail. Keep making the calls. Keep choosing honesty. Keep showing up, because eventually, friend, the new path becomes easier to find. The trail becomes a road, and the road becomes your new normal. This is huge. We're not going too deep into the science of all these things. I just need you to trust me. Go read the science books, okay? There's plenty of books on the brain. I'm bringing this down to hopeful, straightforward information to you today that I believe, based on what science tells me, what the Bible tells me, what my own experience tells me, what my help in coaching others has told me. There is fact and truth to this. Friend, keep going. Don't stop. It will become your new normal because you can stop the addiction by training your body and brain to do differently. So told you I would give you a couple practical steps. Before I give you these steps, I want to remind you this. Your brain's not the enemy. Your brain is doing exactly what you've trained it to do. And the good news is that the brain that learned addiction can learn freedom. The goal isn't to fight your brain, it's to retrain it. That's what recovery is, and that's what renewal can be. That's what transformation is. And so just 4 practical steps that I want you to consider. This is something you should probably journal through, okay? Something you should be keeping notes on for yourself. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to identify the triggers in your life. What are the triggers? This is helpful because then you can be more proactive in choices and awareness, but it's also super helpful in the 4C framework for doing the confront the cause work as well. Because there's something about the triggers that are deeper rooted. So the triggers are obviously involved in the brain, but the triggers are also involved in the spirit, okay? In that spiritual man that is part of who you are as well. So I want you to start taking notes on what are the triggers? What are the things happening? So when you find yourself in emotional kind of like sideways moments, when you find yourself living in temptation, maybe when you find yourself falling to pornography, masturbation, sexual behaviors, whatever it is, I want you to deal with those things in the way you need to deal with them in terms of confession and repentance and all of the spiritual truths that we need to live in. But I also want you to take time to reflect on those moments. Don't just get all upset and sad and depressed that you failed. I want you to learn in that moment as well. So make sure you take time to write down as much as you can write down about the circumstances leading up to and through the process of that. We're identifying what are the triggers. This is very valuable information. And if you come to me for coaching and you've done this work already, we're going to be able to make a lot more progress. Step number 2, interrupt the old pathways with blockers, boundaries, and accountability. Okay. Listen, think about what we've talked about. The pathway, this highway to hell, if you will, is a pathway that has been well laid out. It's well worn. It is super simple to go down. That's where your blockers, like Covenant Eyes, for instance, or Canopy, or any other variety of blockers and internet, whatever. Those things are super important. They're not the answer. frankly, I love covenant eyes and those things, but those things are not going to help you. They're not going to get you free from porn. But if you put up a boundary on that highway, like cones or a barricade or whatever that blocks you from going down that road, my hope is that that boundary, blocker, accountability, whatever it is, that thing will stop you in your tracks long enough to have to think about where you're at, because like you've got to disrupt this, because the brain is already trying to do what it's always done. So if you can put something in that blocks it from doing what it's been taught to do, then it allows you the opportunity to make a conscious choice of going a different direction. Does that make sense, friend? I hope that makes sense to you. So identify your triggers, but then also put interruptions up in your life so that you can hopefully pause long enough to choose the new path and then begin going that way. Step number 3, look for ways to replace pornography with healthy responses. Okay. So there's just obvious ones like communing with God, right? So prayer, reading the scripture, listening to music that brings you closer to God, writing in a journal, taking notes on your notes app or something, like whatever you need to do, texting friends, calling friends, and then even like finding other ways to do things, like building things into your life. We do a lot of this in the 4th pillar of the 4C framework, committing to change. We talk about building kind of this outer circle behaviors, which are the ones we want to do, like the green means go, our green behaviors instead of the red behaviors, right? Which is the addiction, active addiction stuff. So we're looking for ways to replace, right? Paul says, put off and put on, right? So we want to put on new behaviors, new healthy things in our life, right? And then step number 4 is like repeat the new behavior until the new pathway becomes stronger. So identify your triggers, start journaling through that, put some blockers, boundaries, accountability, replace the old behaviors with new behaviors, and then keep going, repeating that behavior. Friend, the longer you stay off the old road, the trees start growing up, the vines, the bushes, the shrubs, and the next thing you know, that this thing that used to be a 6-lane highway to hell is now looking more like a brush and forest, and you almost like, gosh, I remember that road. But you've been going down this new road for so long that one has become the natural pathway forward, a pathway to freedom, a highway, hopefully, at some point to your freedom. So listen, as we exit the conversation today, I don't want you to leave this conversation thinking that you need to try harder. I want you to leave today thinking, oh, there's hope. My brain learned addiction. My brain can learn freedom. And more importantly, God is committed to this transformation, okay? You've got to participate. God doesn't just do things without your participation. Philippians 1:6 says that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. God isn't finished with you, friend. He's not finished with you. Keep cutting the new trail. Keep walking towards the light. Keep renewing your mind, because one day you'll look back, friend, and realize that the road that once led you to bondage has now been replaced by a road that leads to life. Friend, if I can help you in any way, I want to do that. I want to help you. Please go to sexaddictedchristian.com. Go to the website. You can find the link below. And at minimum, download the 4 C's. Download the 4 pillars of a porn-free life. It is free and will just let you self-study and work through these things. I want to see you crushing the shame. I want to see you cultivating community. I want to see you confronting the true cause of your addiction. And I want to see you commit to change. If that 4 pillars will help you, praise God, go get it, go do it with friends, share it with others. I don't care how you do it. I just want you to get free. Come to the shame challenge. If you've listened this long, we're like, how far are we in? We're 30 minutes in today. If you've listened this long, then you're in. I know you are. So sign up. You have 24 hours. Sign up and join me tomorrow for the shame challenge. Okay? Get the VIP ticket. Come to the live coaching. This is a live virtual event, 3 days live virtual event. If you're listening later, I understand you might have missed that one, but there's got to be another one coming up very soon because I'm doing it every month. Okay. So come do that. If you want more than that, if you want me and you one-on-one to jump in, I have an immersion that is available that you can apply for right there on the website under the coaching tab. Just click the button for the sexual addiction freedom immersion, fill out the application, and we will talk and see if that's the right fit for you. So friend, I want to see you free. That's why I'm here. I love you. I'm praying for you. If there's anything I can do, shoot me an email, find me on Instagram. I'm happy to respond, guys. I love you a ton. Hope to see you again on an episode real soon.